Hi, this is Bett Bollhoefer for Embodied Product. Today we're going to jump into something that I'm so happy to share with you. It's called End-to-End Customer Experience. And in this little session, we are going to talk about what is end-to-end customer experience if you've never heard of it before, terms to know about it, how to do it, and then some embodied principles in how to actually do this research, and then how to review that research, including a review of the chakras and end-to-end customer experience. Now, who should watch this presentation? You should watch this if you have the hopes and dreams of creating a service, such as a coaching service or consulting service, or you're making a class online, or you're starting a new YouTube channel or an Instagram or a TikTok channel. So that's like a service, you're bringing something to the market, or you're making an actual product. So some kind of physical thing or a software product, which would then be maybe an app or even a website of some sort. So this process that we're going to go through is so valuable for any of those things. What is end-to-end customer experience, also known as E2E UX, or UX often it's called? It includes everything that a user experiences while using your product or service. It would include discovery and awareness. How do they even know that they need this? How do they hear about it? Are they connecting with friends about this, or they see an ad? Second, onboarding and first experiences. So if it's an app, for instance, are they buying it on an app store? Or are they downloading it on a website? Is it only for the phone? Is it for a laptop? Is it a product they're buying at Walmart? Right, that onboarding first impressions. And then we have the plugging it in, getting it set up. Is it cumbersome? Is it hard? What's that like? Next is using the product. So let's say it's a toaster. You would want to find out what is the process they're using with this product. Is it confusing? Is it easy to use? Does it burn the toast? That's the core product features and the usage of the product. And then from there, you would do troubleshooting. So if something goes wrong, do they know what to do right away? Are they completely lost, confused? How would they go about getting help with their product, support and troubleshooting? And then finally, how do they see this product long term? Are they going to tell their friends about it? Are they going to be a customer for life? Is it something they're going to renew every month? Right? So each of these different kind of things. If it's a consulting business, are they going to refer new customers? Are they going to sign up for a bigger plan? What's that customer journey, and do they want to stay on that journey, or do they just don't want to deal with you anymore? So it's really good to have this process for whatever you're making. And if you are a product manager, this would be something you would be in your wheelhouse, that you'd be doing this kind of work all the time. And if you're a new entrepreneur and you're coming up with a new product, you're going to want to understand these principles, and really use them as much as you can in your entire business. Let's talk about some of the terms I'm going to be using that UX people throw around all the time. And I understand that not everyone knows what we're talking about. So let me define those. User persona. Product managers love their personas. And that's a fictional character that represents a type of user. And now we're going to say user instead of customer, because now they're using the service, you're using the product. So the fictional customer or character that represents the type of user to use your product. So if you were making a toaster for seniors, for instance, someone with lack of visibility, or they have some problems with their hands, the dexterity, you would have a set of personas for different kind of characters that would be using your toaster. Now let's talk about user journey. And this is the path the person takes while using the product or discovering it, or anywhere along those different aspects that we talked about in the beginning. So you'd really want to document that end-to-end process, the path, the journey that your customer goes on, and what are the steps along the way, and are they being supported in all those steps? Pain points. The next term is pain points, things that frustrate the user and make their experience difficult. Just very quick example, how many times have you wanted to buy something and you go to the website and you're trying to buy it and you cannot, there's some kind of challenge. You can't figure out how to log in. They want you to make some long user account and the form is this long, right? Those are things that are called pain points. Your customers are on board, they're ready to buy the thing, and now you're stopping them. So that would be an example of a pain point. Wireframe. Wireframe is a prototype that might be on paper. It could be on paper that simple, that describes how the user is going to interact with the system, the software, the features, the app, the product. You could do it as a storyboard, which is a lot like a comic book with squares that go along, showing even just the worst drawing ever is fine. It gets people into the process of thinking about how that user is using the software over time or the app or the product. Wireframe is a drawing that shows how the user is going to use that software. But the next thing is the prototype. Now, prototypes can also still be on paper. You could also make it a little bit more flexible. You could have a website that has fake links so that a user could click through and see how do they feel going through that experience. Is it clunky? Could you streamline it? Now, I think one of the most famous prototypes in modern era is the Google glasses. When they were doing the prototypes for that, they literally were just taking like regular glasses and taping things to them so that people could start getting an idea of what is this product going to look like and feel like. I highly recommend that you do not spend a lot of money and time on prototype because you're just trying to get early feedback. And if you waste months and months building a prototype and then find out, oh, we hate this, you've basically wasted all that time. A/B testing is the next term. Oh my gosh, people love this term. And you might hear it all the time and maybe you never knew what it meant. A/B testing means it's almost like when you go to the eye doctor and they say, which one's better, A, or B? And they put the little different lens in front of you and you have to decide which one's better. A/B testing is just like that. So you may have two versions of your app or toaster and you put it in front of your customer and the customer just says, I like this one better. It's just a piece of data point that helps you start going in the right direction. Finally, let's go over retention rate. That means, do your customers stay with you? And it's as a percentage over time. Are your customers dropping off or are they staying? So it's a way to measure progress. I'm excited to share now my story about user experience. I was a software engineer for many years and I loved software engineering, but I was really into the code. I wanted to write the code. I was really into the algorithm design and the technical aspects of software engineering. And then I started getting my master's degree from Carnegie Mellon and I was getting software engineering management, which is like an MBA for computer scientists. And the class I took that changed my life and really set me on a different path was called The Design of Everyday Things. And in the book that Donald Norman wrote called The Design of Everyday Things, he says that our ability to build now is outstripping our ability to ask why and to say, what are we supposed to be building? What should we be building? And this whole end-to-end user experience is slowing down and saying, well, what are we really doing? What's the purpose? What's the why? What's the mission of this? We can do almost anything, but what should we be doing? And that book, by the way, which I highly recommend, it's still incredible. Donald Norman, The Design of Everyday Things, goes into so many examples when you walk up to a door and you can't figure out, do you push it, do you pull it? This is the most basic function and we don't know what to do. Users tend to blame themselves whenever they run into a challenge with any kind of service product, but really it's a design issue. It's a problem with the design of the product. Now, if you are designing a product and you really want it to be awesome, you're going to want to do this end-to-end user experience work. So how did it impact me? Well, I went back to my job at Verizon where I was working as a software engineer, and I pitched to my management team this end-to-end user experience process. And the concept was that we'd have a scheduling system where we take software engineers, database analysts, testers, all kinds of people who basically sat in office all day and just stared at a computer screen out into the field and work with techs doing maintenance on phone lines, or sitting in a call center and watching the users deal with troubleshooting calls coming in or sales calls and having to fight with the software. So my engineers and myself were building the software, but we didn't have any idea of how it was being used in the field. I built out a team, I built out a process. We would send techs or engineers out with techs, engineers out to call centers, engineers out to sales centers, all these different places. And I had a format to gather that data, which I will be talking about in a moment. We had this database where we started taking all these user experience research findings, putting them together, and then we would run these workshops with a variety of different experts from different parts of the system. And this is software systems we're talking about. And we would pick one topic to do a deep dive and see how we could implement changes to our software to make the whole end-to-end experience better. This was one of the most exciting and joyful periods of my life. I loved running these big teams and really finding ways to improve the software. Needless to say, I love user experience, and studying it is something so exciting to me, and bringing it to you today is very fun. I rolled that program out at Verizon, and it was definitely one of the highlights of my career. Now let's talk about how to do this research. The first thing you need to understand is that the best place to do this research is where your customer is in their natural environment, like a scientist going out to research a tribe or an animal, watching them in that natural habitat. And what they call this a lot of times is interviewing. If you can't get to the person in their natural habitat, watching them with the service, then you could do surveys. You could also have them record themselves using your app. There are also things you could do. You could ask them to review the pain points, send them a survey and have them fill it out. These are all going to be worse than actually going to the customer's natural habitat and watching them use their service or product. And I'll give some examples from my own life. When I worked at Verizon, there was a time that I flew out to Czech, and I sat with the Czech team in the call center. They were doing a specialized kind of order, very complicated, using a very ancient system that we were trying to basically replace with a more modern system. And I would sit there with them and try to understand all the aspects of how they were doing this with the current system. And I use that in order to help build the new one. Another example is when I was at GE Digital building Predix, the Internet of Things, the industrial Internet of Things, I should say. I was in charge of developer experience. So developer experience is a very specific kind of user. And I would sit there and watch them onboard into our software, into our portal. And I would document all the steps where they got really, really challenged. And then we take those back to our design team and figure out how can we improve and smooth out and make streamline the process. Another thing you can do, although I highly recommend that you be involved in this, is hire a huge firm like IDEO, who can do this kind of user research. They call it customer research or CX, customer experience. And they have all these tools. They've really blazed the trail on this, on how to do this research. So if you want to hire someone, definitely go ahead. But I highly recommend that you are very involved in this, because as a product manager, you're going to want to know this firsthand as much as possible. Now, let's talk about the embodied aspects of doing this research. Number one, you need to have a beginner's mind. Really open your mind, try to drop your bias. I know it's almost impossible to do that, but you really want to set your intention when you go into this research as having the beginner's mind. Second, suspend judgment while gathering the data. Listen openly and avoid jumping into conclusions or arguing with the customer, which I've seen. The challenge is that if you're building a product or a service, you really believe in it and you think it's the best thing ever. But when you when you start hearing from your customer, like, I can't figure out where to click right now, or I can't get the bread out of the toaster, right? Who hasn't been there? We want to be like, oh, well, you should be doing this, or you should be doing, stop. Don't say you should be doing that. You're there to listen. You're not there to train them. You're not there to like, oh no, click that button. You're there to listen with an open mind, and that is where you are in this research. Next, let's talk about how to actually talk to the customer as you get this process going. Ask open-ended questions, and here's some of my favorite. Number one, how do you know it's time to use this product? One of the things I did when I sat with my users of some of the software at Verizon is I would ask them, how do you know that you have work to do? And it was fascinating because sometimes they'd have to go to 3 websites and search for work, opening a queue and looking and filtering and finding. It was like 5 steps before they even know what they're supposed to do that day. So as you're thinking about this user experience and you want people to get to the process to use the software right away, you could think of having something land, right? Or come into their email if they're an email kind of organization, or have an app that pops up when they log in that says, here's your things to do today. So anyways, asking, how do you know it's time to use this product? Or how do you know you have work to do? Or how do you know it's time to use this app? That's a very interesting question, because it really starts helping you open your mind to, how does the person look for the product? How do they find it? What are they really going through? And are you actually solving their problem? All right. Next, as you're watching them use the toaster or the app, and you see that they're struggling, right? You can see emotionally, like they're having a hard time. They're looking around, they're tapping it, whatever that's going on. You ask them this: what are you struggling with? Don't try to help them. Don't tell them what to do. Just ask them, what are you struggling with? Another good question, if you see them looking around confused, ask, what are you looking for? And another good question, what do you think you should be doing now? So I have a product right now that I have that is for volunteers and volunteer leaders, having a team of people doing all kinds of different tasks. And I do this kind of research regularly with my users, and I see them and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, what do you think you should do? And this helps me relabel things on the screen or move things around or just change the name of terms. It is really eye-opening when you watch someone struggle with your product or service to help them understand how to use it and how to refine it. As you go through all this process, it'd be great to have video if they let you. I love having my users on Zoom using the software, me recording it, because then I can share it with my team and we can actually all discuss, what did we really see here? Also, asking, obviously you're going to ask them if you can record them, if you can have another video, if they're playing in a 3-dimensional space like a kitchen, having documentation with a video is so great. Also, if you, what I did when I worked at Verizon is I had a form with steps on it. And so I would write each and every step, where they clicked, what they were doing, if they were struggling with it. When I worked at Verizon, I would have a form and it would have steps, and the person I would fill out, or the people out watching the users would fill it out. All right. So we've gone over the basics of what is end-to-end customer experience or user experience and how to do it, some of the terms. And then we talked about this embodiment. And now we're going to talk just through the chakras. of how do you combine end-to-end customer experience and this embodied wisdom. And this is really where your intention is going to come from on how you approach this work. So we're going to start with the crown. We're going to come in with a desire to learn something about the evolving universe. And if you have that kind of big picture of, I really want to learn, I want to understand the evolving universe, at least that phrase resonates with me versus I'm going to try to, bully my customer into learning how to use my product better. It's like having that desire to learn and that humility is going to really help you. Next is the third eye. Open yourself to what's being said, shown, and felt. Really allow the things to come in. Don't block it with bias. Don't block it with like, hey, you're doing it wrong. Throat. Give encouragement to your user. In the beginning, your user may be trying to impress you with something or show off something. You want them to just start feeling comfortable with showing you what's wrong with your software or product and helping you find those places where they can work together with you to figure out what's happening, right? So say things like, okay, what happens next? And what are you looking for now? What are you struggling? Some of those questions I mentioned versus, okay, click the next. Yeah, you should click that button, right? So the words you say that are coming from your throat chakra are going to be really, really important that you want negative feedback. You want their struggles, their emotions. You're not trying to, embarrass them. A lot of times users feel it's their fault. And so you need to make sure they feel comfortable by saying encouraging phrases like, yes, we're going to try to make this better together. So tell me when you're running into a challenge instead of them trying to pretend like everything is fine. Heart chakra. So when you change your heart to the direction of this work is going to help me serve my customer better, it's going to really put you in the right frame of reference so that you're not defensive or feeling scared or nervous. This is your baby we're talking about, right? Opening your heart to say, we are going to make this product better to actually meet their needs. That is a really nice heart chakra intention. Solar plexus. Solar plexus comes into play realizing that you have so much power in doing this research. How many of your competitors are actually doing this level of open-minded research to their service? Probably not that many because it's humiliating a lot of times when you find out that your buttons are named the wrong thing, they're in the wrong order, your toaster burns the toast every time. Whatever that is, it's hard to have that level of feedback. And this is going to give you a lot of power, which is wonderful. Sacrum. The sacrum member is our differentiation. And the only thing that matters when we're building products and service nowadays is how differentiated. Differentiated is the key word in product and service in this modern era. The Me Too, which is not, I'm not talking about the women's movement. I'm talking about there's so many products that are knockoffs, a cheap knockoff. We don't want that. We're making something that's very specific for a very specific customer that we have a connection with, a heart chakra connection with. We want to serve them. So drilling down into the emotional state as you're dealing with your customer, really opening your heart and your sacrum, I should say, to the smallest little changes. That's what's going to make this product differentiated. And I'm going to give you an example right here from my yoga teaching. I started teaching yoga a few years ago, and I first started in this very generic yoga studio. And I had all the ages. I had young people and old people, people with injuries. And every day or every time I taught, I would feel nonstop emotional distress and discomfort. And I saw it also in my students. They were frustrated. So we had these fit young people who just wanted to do chaturanga all day and handstands and headstands and flying pigeons and all kinds of fancy stuff. And I had seniors who were really trying to strengthen, work on their balance, be meditative, and I had everything in between. And so tapping into that experience of watching my students struggle feeling it in my own self and not being reactive and saying, oh, I'm a bad teacher, or they shouldn't be in this class. All those are stories that come in instead of having this raw experience of, hey, this is not good. We need to fix this, was actually one of the reasons that I launched my own personalized yoga teaching service and coaching, which is allowing me to work directly one-on-one with a student to find their issues, work with them from my extensive training to help them with their specific issues. Now, if I had not really dove into that discomfort of myself and my student, I would not be able to differentiate myself in having this service. I would just be, again, just be a normal generic yoga teacher at a normal generic yoga studio. So what I'm trying to say is when we tap into the sacral and say, hey, I'm okay with going into the discomfort. I'm okay because I want to differentiate and find that unique selling point of my service and product. It is a game changer. Again, this is all very challenging and can be very, very discomforting in the beginning. Let's go to the final, and that's the root chakra. The root chakra is our groundedness. And when you are out there watching your customers, getting this real life feedback from them, you are fully grounded in real data. And that is where we want to be as a customer experience expert and doing this as our product, with our product manager hat on. All right, let's talk about the final step. This is not a one and done. You're going to be continually honing, listening, finding ways to improve your service, testing, implementing. There's this process called agile, which means you basically have a theory, you put out a prototype, you put it in front of people, they like it, you tweak it, you make it better, and then you put it out fully, and then you listen, test, find out, and then keep that process going. It never ends. It's a continual process, which is really how life is. So build into your end-to-end process ways that you can test. Maybe do once a month a check-in with your users or have a customer symposium. So you want to build into your process something that's on a cadence where you're checking with your customers, finding out if there's new problems. And whenever you roll out a new feature, you're going to have to do this whole process again. It's not going to end. Just like the universe continues to evolve, your product and service are going to continue to evolve. And you're going to be interested in new things as you go through your life. All right. So today we went through a lot of things. What is user experience? What are the terms? When do you use it? My own story and how I've used this through my life. I've dropped in here. And then how it works, embodied, learning mind, beginner's mind, all those things. And then how it works with the chakras. I hope you've really enjoyed this and that you share it with people who might need it. I think this embodied product philosophy is what we need right now to stay heart-centered, to stay grounded, to help build products that are actually helping people in where they are in their life. So I'm Bett Bollhoefer. If you like this, click the like button, subscribe, and share with other people. And go to my website in the link to find the workbook which accompanies these videos, where you can actually document questionnaire answers to my questionnaires in here and build your own product and service. Thank you so much. Namaste.